Hey everyone, it's actually Jeb Bush, and we are now 1 month away from the start of the new NBA season. And if you're like me, that means you've started to prepare for the new NBA SoRare season by looking at the marketplace and checking out the existing players in your collection. So today I went through every player on the NBA SoRare marketplace to find the best buy lows and sell highs for this upcoming season. Now before we get started, if you don't have a SoRare account, go ahead and check out my affiliate link in the description below so you don't miss out on all the fun. As always, this video is not financial advice. Make sure to smash that like button and make sure you're subscribed to the channel. And let's get started. Now we actually kind of have a theme with our 3 buy low targets today. And let me know in the comments below if you figured it out as we go along. Our first buy low is a player who ended up having a pretty rough season last year after a really strong start. While this player is definitely the best player with the highest cap out of the 3 that we're going to be talking about today, he would not be considered an MVP for your lineup. He's a player that's a borderline all-star and a firm number 2 option on his team. However, I think he's going to be bouncing back healthy this year on a team that is very motivated to win a lot of games. I also think there's a very solid chance that he can make that jump into becoming an all-star this year. And that player is Desmond Bane. Desmond Bane has a cap of 38 with a limited floor price of around $5 and a rare floor price at around $32. And like I said, Desmond Bane started last season off very strong, and he was a really solid player until we got around the in-season tournament time. Now, not only did Desmond Bane struggle with some injuries, but the Memphis Grizzlies in general had their entire roster just devastated by injuries. And I think all the injuries is what really held Desmond Bane back the second half of the season, because there was no real reason for him to come back. And on top of that, him being the only real viable player on that team, he was getting doubled as soon as he touched the ball. Despite all that, I think we saw some real flashes of what Desmond Bane could bring to the table this season. Bane will now be the number 2 option with Ja Morant coming back healthy this season. And with the addition of Edie as well as Triple J coming back healthy and Marcus Smart, you're getting a lot of offensive power and solid passing. I think that results in Desmond Bane getting a lot more open 3-point looks, and he is a great 3-point shooter. On top of that, Desmond Bane is a really good defender, and now the Grizzlies are going to have some real size. With the addition of Edie, Triple J coming back healthy, Brandon Clark coming back healthy, and more, Desmond Bane will have an opportunity to take more risks trying to intercept passes or go for steals, because he knows guys like Edie and Triple J are clogging up the paint, getting blocks, and altering shots. Personally, I think the Grizzlies are going to shock a lot of people who are sleeping on them and finish with a top 4 spot in the West. And for that to happen, Desmond Bane is going to have to play a huge role in that. So for those reasons, I'm making sure I have Desmond Bane before the season starts. Now, our next buy low target is a player who spent a good chunk of the offseason as a free agent. And it seems like during that time, a lot of people were really sleeping on this player and completely wrote him off. And that was most evident when you looked at how people drafted him during NBA best ball contests at that time, such as the double dribble on Underdog Fantasy. However, since this player signed with the Suns, his ADP has gone much higher and people have been drafting him much earlier than they were before. However, it looks like the SoRare marketplace hasn't caught up to that yet. And I think this might be a great opportunity to grab him before the season starts and people start noticing his performances. And that player is Tyus Jones. Tyus Jones is a cap of 29 with a limited floor sitting at around $2.50 and a rare floor sitting just below $13. Now, if you've been following this channel for a while, you know that we have been Tyus Jones maxis since NBA SoRare started. Especially when he was a backup point guard on the Grizzlies, Tyus Jones was essentially a cheat code whenever he ended up starting because of injuries. Since then, Tyus Jones has gone on to play for the Washington Wizards and has really shown his ceiling capabilities despite being on an absolutely garbage team. Now he's signed to the Suns and will be surrounded by offensive juggernauts such as Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, and Bradley Beal. On top of that, Tyus Jones has consistently proven that he's a player who makes smart basketball decisions. His assist to turnover ratio is unreal. And now that he's going to be surrounded by elite offensive weapons, I think that assist to turnover ratio might somehow get even better. Because Kevin Durant and Devin Booker are going to reward you with a bucket on a good pass almost every single time. On top of that, the sheer gravity that Durant and Booker and even Beal are going to have on the court is going to leave Tyus Jones just wide open for easy layups and open threes. Now, obviously, I'm a little biased because I've always loved Tyus Jones, but I think this situation was built for him to thrive on. Now that Booker can move over and play a natural shooting guard, Tyus Jones will be essential to that team's success if they want to do anything in the playoffs, unlike last year. But I just think he's pretty underpriced on SoRare, considering he's going to be a viable playoff card as well. I myself already own 3 Tyus Jones limited cards, and I think I'm going to end up grabbing another limited and a rare at these prices. Because when you compare him to other players on the marketplace, he's really priced like he's a bench player, when I personally think he's going to be a starter. So like I said, I want to have a Tyus Jones before the season starts and people start to see how him being surrounded by elite offense will really help his SoRare stock. Now for the last buy low of this video, I'm targeting a player who had a pretty decent start to last season and really played some solid minutes, putting up some very solid scores before getting ultimately sidelined by injuries for, I think, over half the season. As a result, the price on his SoRare cards are pretty low right now, and there's still some uncertainty with his health and whether he'll be able to perform at the level he was before his injuries this season. However, after seeing he signed to the Warriors during the offseason, I personally am willing to take a gamble on those low card prices, hoping he gets a lot of minutes and really solid usage. And that player is De'Anthony Melton. De'Anthony Melton has a cap of 17 with a limited price at just below $2 and a rare price sitting just above $12. And like I said, there's definitely some concern that De'Anthony Melton is not out of the woods when it comes to his injuries. But I just don't think the Warriors pay him over $20 million for one season if he is still injured. It is possible they take it slow during the beginning of the season with him, but I think they fully expect him to be a solid contributor coming off the bench. And like I said, before he had this injury on the 76ers, he was doing just that for them. Melton was essentially the 76ers' sixth man and was coming off the bench and proving he had dynamic scoring abilities and could really help energize the team to catch up or help hold the lead. Like I said before, I think the Lakers and the Warriors are much closer to being lottery teams than playoff teams this year. So especially when it comes to bench players and players that will get a massive usage boost if there are injuries, those are the players I'm really trying to target. Even with the limited amount of games he played last year, he demonstrated that he could put up a ceiling SoRare score. Most importantly, the Warriors traded away Klay Thompson this year, which really leaves a massive amount of minutes and usage and three-pointers available for anyone. Now, a lot of people are saying that Brandon Podziemski will be getting the lion's share of that. And while I do think Podziemski is first in line, I don't think De'Anthony Melton is that far behind, and all it really takes is one injury to a key player during a long season for Melton to be the main benefactor of all those minutes and usage being available. Ultimately, considering his stock can't get much lower and the price on his SoRare cards can't get much lower, I'm willing to roll the dice on De'Anthony Melton, and I want to make sure I have at least one of him in my collection before the season starts. All right, so now that we talked about our 3 buy lows, let's go ahead and talk about our 3 sell highs. And unlike last video, I have 3 legitimate, distinct sell highs to talk about. Now, the first player I think you should sell high on is not only a SoRare MVP caliber player, but he has recently won MVP in the NBA. He's a player that's more than capable of putting up massive SoRare scores game week after game week. However, he's also a player that's known for getting injured and for not making it past the second round in the NBA playoffs. And that player is Joel Embiid. Embiid has a cap of 56 with a limited price just above $61 and a rare price just above $220. Now, if you've been following this channel for a while or been watching the recent Underdog best ball content, you already know that I am fading Joel Embiid pretty hard this season. While I don't doubt that Joel Embiid will put up some massive SoRare scores this season, I think his priorities lie elsewhere. In the past, Joel Embiid has been very focused on winning MVP after he felt like he had been snubbed in years past. Joel Embiid has been very focused on putting up massive empty numbers to prove that he's, the best big man in the NBA. Joel Embiid in the past has been a serial flopper who goes to the free throw line to inflate his numbers as much as possible. However, I think that this is the season that is the breaking point for Joel Embiid and the 76ers organization. I think Embiid realizes that the regular season numbers don't really matter if he can't perform during the playoffs, and he always seems to be injured going into the playoffs. And I think the 76ers, who just signed Joel Embiid to a massive extension, want him to prioritize the playoffs. The 76ers have gotten much deeper this offseason and have multiple weapons at their disposal after picking up Paul George. On top of that, they have cap space and plenty of assets to make a trade before the trade deadline to really get this team ready for the playoffs. Also, part of that added depth was picking up Andre Drummond as a backup center. Now, I'm not saying Andre Drummond is this incredible player, but he is definitely a massive upgrade from Paul Reed. And we might need to talk about him a little more in the next video as a potential buy low. But ultimately, it seems to me that the 76ers and Joel Embiid are both on the same page of making a serious playoff run. With that being said, I don't think we're going to see Embiid chasing stats nearly as much. I don't think he's going to be playing in games when they're ahead by 20 in the fourth quarter. I think there's a really good chance we see him load manage and not try to play through injuries. I don't think he's going to be making sure he plays enough games to be NBA All-First Team or an MVP possibility. I think this is the season that Embiid is going to do everything in his power to enter the playoffs as close to 100% healthy as possible. Now, will that happen? That's a different discussion because Embiid is out of shape. He falls down a lot. He puts a lot of pressure on his knees. I definitely have zero faith in him, but that's besides the point here. Now, especially at the beginning of the season, I think we are going to see some pretty spectacular games coming from Embiid on SoRare. However, I think that makes it a great time to sell at the top rather than make sure you're playing him in your lineups. Right now, if you had a limited Embiid, you could sell it and use that money to buy a limited Giannis and have money left over, or almost be able to buy 2 limited Tatums. And personally, this season, I'd rather have either of those guys over Embiid. Now, our second sell high is a player that I can't say much about without you knowing exactly who it is. He's an all-time NBA great who is still playing at the age of 40, and that player is no other than LeBron James. Now, LeBron has a cap of 56 with a limited price at around $18 and a rare price just below $100. Now, like I said, when we were talking about DeAnthony Melton as a buy low, I personally think the Warriors and the Lakers are much closer to being lottery teams than being actual legitimate playoff teams. On top of that, Anthony Davis is coming off one of his most healthy seasons as a Laker in recent history, where he played 76 games last season. Personally, I don't see a world where Anthony Davis plays even close to that many this season. Now, like I said, LeBron James is 40 years old and is starting to get up there in age. And if you actually watch a Laker game from start to end, you can see that at this point in his career, he's relatively lazy on defense and likes to rest so that way he can put his energy into putting up empty stats on the offensive side. Now, for SoRare specifically, that alone is not a bad thing, and I think you could even make a valid argument that it actually increases LeBron's SoRare value. However, I think when we factor all these variables together, such as LeBron's age, AD's health, the Lakers' lack of talent, the Lakers' lack of defense, etc., I think it all adds up to LeBron sitting out a lot of games, whether he's healthy or not. LeBron has made it very clear throughout his career that he does not want to play meaningless basketball. So much so that he abandoned the Heat and the Cavaliers twice when that was an inevitability. So if AD does struggle with injuries, or even the Lakers just get off to a really bad start, I think LeBron will essentially quit on the Lakers and be sitting a good amount of the time. The only 2 reasons LeBron is going to be playing is because he wants a ring and he wants to play with his son. I think LeBron will be playing with Bronny at the beginning of the NBA season, because that will allow the Lakers front office the ability to send Bronny down to the G League to develop further. And if Bronny's in the G League and the Lakers aren't winning games, I don't think LeBron is playing. Personally, I don't think it's worth the risk of having his SoRare cards in my gallery, and I would rather sell them and buy younger players who will be more active this season. Now, our first two sell highs were MVP caliber players, but for this third and final sell high, I want to talk about a role player. Now, this role player consistently contributed meaningful minutes on a 76ers team last year, and he's a player who's a real threat from the three-point line, as well as someone who can drive and finish strong at the basket. However, since the 76ers improved their depth tremendously during this offseason, I think this player just won't have the opportunities he had last year to put up meaningful ceiling games on SoRare. And that player is Kelly Oubre Jr. Kelly Oubre Jr. has a cap of 28 with a limited price just above $3 and a rare price just above $23. And if you notice, his prices are currently higher than both Tyus Jones and De'Anthony Melton, two of our buy lows. And while I think there's a good chance that Tyus Jones is a starter, I think Kelly Oubre is going to get buried on that 76ers bench. Now, Oubre is still a phenomenal offensive player, like we mentioned. He's a great three-point shooter and can put you on a poster at the rim. However, he's now going to be on a team with three ball-dominant all-star caliber players in Tyrese Maxey, Paul George, and Joel Embiid. On top of that, they drafted a guard in Jared McCain, who has a lot of promise and is someone they're definitely going to want to develop to see if he fits into this, hopefully, team that can make a real playoff run. Plus, they added real depth on their bench with Reggie Jackson, Eric Gordon, Caleb Martin, and Andre Drummond. And while Kelly Oubre Jr. on the 76ers depth chart is currently listed as the starting shooting guard, I don't think that's actually going to be the case once the season starts. Or if for some reason he does end up starting, I just don't see it remaining that way. This 76ers team is drastically different than last year, and Kelly Oubre is going to be really competing for minutes and usage. On top of that, like we mentioned before, the 76ers have the cap space and the assets to make a big trade, which might just land another big player to take away minutes and usage from Kelly Oubre Jr. Personally, I just don't see a world where Oubre is going to be a big part of this rotation this season. I think really the only chance he has to be relevant on SoRare this season is if he ends up getting traded for the 76ers to bring in a bigger player. For example, I could see a world where the 76ers trade Oubre and additional assets to the tanking Bulls for a better player. And in that case, Oubre would have an opportunity to put up empty numbers on a bad team. But I do see that as the only real relevant path for Oubre to have SoRare relevancy. So in the meantime, I think you have to sell him high before the season starts. And if you believe that he could get traded, pick him up before people start talking about the trade deadline, because I can almost promise his prices are going to be significantly lower. So with that being said, I think that about does it for another buy low, sell high video for NBA SoRare going into this NBA season. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching, and let me know in the comments below what you think. Do you think I'm off about any of my sell highs or buy lows? Are there players that you're targeting and that you're getting really excited about as the season is about to start? Like I said, let me know in the comments below and we can go back and forth talking about it, because I'm always curious to hear what you guys think. As always, make sure to smash the like on the video if you haven't. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel, and I'll see you guys next video. Please clap.